Hello, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of the 6DOF Reviews podcast. Boy, oh boy, have I got a strange little episode for you today, sweet viewer. You may notice from the fact that you are looking at an entire screen full of my gigantic floating egg in the void of space that I'm flying solo today. What could have caused such an uncomfortable turn of events? No one knows. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control, I am without either co-pilot for this episode. Neither Doc nor Omar could attend today, but that's okay, because I am such a narcissist that I intend to do all three sections all by myself. Now, I look forward to checking the analytics on YouTube to see that this was the exact moment when 94% of our viewers have exited the video. I don't blame you. Well played. Well played. In the meantime, though, I will do my best to lighten the mood and fill the void with two new co-hosts that I have found. First of all, representing Omar, this will be the very excellent Omar Camel. Omar, how are you today? By the way, I'm not an actor. I'm not a voice actor. I don't do voices. So we're going to go with vague American because I believe Omar has a touch of American. This is not my impression of Omar. Omar, come on. How are you today? Well, I'm just swell. Thank you very much. That's going to get old real quick, but I'm going to stick with it. And in the blue corner, weighing in at exactly I don't know how much, is everybody's favorite, Doc Neal. Doc, how are you? Now, Doc has a British accent, and I can only do one other British accent, so this is not representative of Doc, but this is what it's going to be like. All right, geezer, I'm all right then. Welcome to the show. Oh, this is going to be fun. You guys are going to love this. It's Omar, it's Doc, it's Pete. We're all having a great time. So, what's on the docket today, boys? Well, first up, I thought we might talk a little bit about Metro. It's just come out, and we may or may not have a review for you. I'd also like to talk about Metro. That's really not going to work, is it? I'd also like to talk about Metro because I've played it too. Well, that sounds good, gents. I'm not going to keep that up. Let's go ahead and put on the docket item number 1, Metro Awakening. Releasing today, one of the most highly anticipated games for Quest coming up in this soon-to-be holiday season, and I'll get you a little spoiler, a divisive release amongst the team. This will be fun. Following that, I am going to talk to you about Blade and Sorcery Nomad, the Crystal Hunt update. For those of you who don't know, this is effectively the full game version of the previously sandbox-only Blade and Sorcery. So we'll have a little bit of a chat around that. Following that, we are going to do a new little section, and I say we, me and the boys here. We're going to do a new little section called What Did We Miss? Now, this has come courtesy of, hang on a second, I want to make sure, I think it was Lord Val from Hell, and I should have had this on the screen already. But in the comments of our previous episode, where was one comment basically saying, shall I assume that if you haven't covered a game within 6 months of its release, you've effectively said, in saying nothing, everything you need to say? Now, it's not entirely true. Sometimes we are just too busy, and even if a game was halfway decent, we just didn't get around to do it. So I didn't want for everyone to think, well, that's what it is. If we haven't covered it, it means that we didn't like it at all. So let me just have a little look here. I'm scrolling through. Okay. So it was my good friend, Super McFluffy Pants. Super McFluffy Pants was the one who asked us the question. So, Super McFluffy Pants, in relation to your question, I am putting in a whole section called What Did We Miss? Where I'm going to pick 3 games from the backlog, 3 games that came out during the course of the year that I played, that I enjoyed, and I just didn't have time to review. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. And then at the end, depending on timing or whether or not I think you guys are still there, it's very strange speaking into the void at my own egg. We might have a little discussion around the state of the meta store. But that would really, rather than being a discussion, that would just be an editorial. And I don't think anybody really wants that. So we might cut it short a little bit today. So that is what is on the docket for today. Once again, there are quite a few new releases coming out today, and we're not necessarily going to hit every one. in part because, unfortunately, we didn't receive access to every single one. So there's a few games coming out today that we're just going to skip, but the big one, the big money title, Metro, is first up. Now, the unfortunate thing that I have to say about the fact that my colleagues have not been present is, of all three of us, I've actually played it the least. So I can happily tell you a little bit about my thoughts. I have some notes that are shared from a discussion that we've had within the team chat. I can tell you about what Doc had to say about it. And I can tell you a little bit about what Omar had to say about it. And I will keep it very neutral. They didn't necessarily agree, but that's fine. We don't always agree about games, and there is nothing wrong with that at all. You might not agree with me, but that's fine, darling. That's no problems. Doc, don't call the viewer darling. That's a bit obnoxious. Anyway. So, Metro's come out today. I will give you my impressions first. My impressions are based on about 90 minutes of gameplay. There are 12 chapters on offer within the game Metro Awakening VR by prolific studio Vertigo Games Amsterdam. It's very clear it's Vertigo Games Amsterdam. And I've played the first 2 chapters. What I can tell you is that if I had have made a list about 12 months ago of all the qualities that I don't personally enjoy in a video game, this is not to say that they're like these aren't faults or bugs, just gameplay characteristics. Metro ticks almost every single box for me. There are stealthy components. There is a lot of exposition and dialogue. It's a little bit tense, horror-y, a little bit. And again, keep in mind, I'm basing this just on the first 2 chapters. It's a single-player campaign. It's all the things that I never thought I'd enjoy. And what I can tell you is I'm loving it so far. I personally am absolutely enthralled. I am enjoying the way that the story is being meted out. Comparatively, having just played Batman, and I had to put Batman down in order to play this so I'd have something to discuss with you, I actually find the way that the narrative is being delivered is... it's more fluid than Batman. Batman would trap you in a room and you wouldn't be able to move anywhere until the story segment had happened. At least with Metro, the way they deliver the story, it sort of happens a little bit more organically. So the story can follow you, the exposition can follow you, and I'm quite enjoying that. It's dark, it's atmospheric. It is at the maximum level of creepy that I can comfortably handle and have fun with. So I'm not finding that I'm pulling myself through it or pushing myself to do it for the sake of speaking to you about it. I am enjoying it, but it has that fluttery heart that I get of creeping through. I know that there could be creatures jumping out at me, and when they do, I literally jump. I keep dying because things jump out at me, and I tell you what, VR does a great job of testing your character, and when the apocalypse comes, I will be first dead, because when these things jump out at me, I'm like, I spray my gun everywhere, I'm out of ammo, and then I'm just left to die. So that's me. I think graphically it's quite good. I think sound design I'm really enjoying. It has that same sort of ambience that was talked about with Arizona Sunshine Remake. I think it's the same, and don't make me say his name again terribly. Jonathan, you know who you are from Vertigo. You're a rock star as far as I'm concerned. I really enjoy your work in how the world is being portrayed from an audio point of view. So all in all, from my hour and a bit, from my 2 chapters, from my 1/6, according to my long division of the gameplay, I am thoroughly looking forward to continuing. However, anything could happen. Game could change completely. Now, Sweet Doc, what did you think about it? Well, it's got a lot of positive things. There's a lot of things that are going on well, but it has some technical issues that I'm just not prepared to overlook. That seems completely fair, mate, actually. And you've got a really good eye for these sorts of things, so I'd love to hear more about that. Now, I've got a few notes on my phone, so this is a bit odd that I'm going to do it this way. But, and I won't read verbatim, but a few things that Doc pointed out. So Doc wasn't that impressed. He's not saying it's terrible at all, and I do have a gut score here that I'm not going to share because I don't know actually which of the 2 of them is doing the review. But Doc definitely said that there's a lot of things that worked for him. But let's see if I can find some of the quotes. Hang on a second. Let's see. There are technical issues. So it's possible to reload your gas mask instead of your gun in the middle of a firefight. Now, in fairness, I did that once, and after I did it one time, I adjusted my movements. But it seems like, again, after you've played through it a lot more, you'd be better suited to make that comment. So Doc played it, felt that there were some really good things about it, but there are quite a few things that he found unsatisfactory. And should he be the one doing the review, you're going to hear all about that. Technical issues, ways that the storytelling was constrictive to him, and the way that the gameplay sort of was trying to do two things at the same time and tripped over itself in order to achieve them. Now, that's probably a terrible paraphrasing. And Doc, if you're listening to this, I'm really sorry if I've misstated you. Jump in the comments, tell me I'm a dick, and clarify and speak for yourself. Otherwise, guess what? The llama's doing it. Now, Omar, however, has finished the game. I know he finished it yesterday. And he had a really different take on it. He really quite enjoyed it. I don't have a play-by-play of the things that he enjoyed it, other than to say that it was excellent, it was atmospheric, it was creepy. He engaged with the story and found the storytelling to be really quite good as well. So if it's Omar that's doing the review for you guys, you're actually going to get a much more positive spin. So interesting. I was going to do a little bit more of reading the notes and the voices of the two characters, and then I thought, well, what I really don't want to do is be insulting to my colleagues who aren't here and misrepresent their viewpoint. So I'm going to leave it at that, to say that Metro Awakening VR, out today, divisive among the team. Definitely uniformly agree that there is many positives about it, and I would say 2 out of 3 of us are probably more impressed, and Doc, who is less impressed, has done so through a very critical and analytical eye, and can't wait to hear more about that. So there you go, everybody. That is Metro Awakening VR, summarized by me. So next up, we're going to move on, and the next game that we want to talk about is Blade and Sorcery. Now, Blade and Sorcery is a bit of a big deal. Now, it's not something that I've ever enjoyed terribly much. I've played it, barely managed to play it on the PC. Those of you who follow the channel understand that my PC is made of mashed potato and good intentions. I think I've got it to limp into running Blade and Sorcery on all the lowest settings. It was about the last game that kind of actually could run on my laptop. Nomad came out, and I was very excited. I finally got to play this stalwart melee game of VR, and I didn't like it. Those of you who've seen the review, I gave it a 6. I thought it was a bit janky. Graphically, it wasn't terribly great, and it really lacked depth in gameplay. It was just a sandbox. And for me, there's something about a murder simulator like that that's just a little bit uncomfortable. And I sort of, for me, I don't derive that much pleasure in just murdering people for the sake of, like, I can put this here, and I don't know. It made me a little uncomfortable. However, the game has continued to evolve. The PC VR version received the full 1.0 update some months ago, or weeks ago, and it was really well received. And now we're finally getting it on the Quest, which is the only way I can play. So I've jumped back into this classic game after some period of time. For you, viewer, I pulled myself away from Batman and Metro to jump into Blade and Sorcery so that we'd have this to talk about. And admittedly, I have not completed it. The campaign as it is roughly, from what I've heard, it's about 7 to 8 hours worth of gameplay. I've not put that much in to get through to the end of it. Essentially, what it does is it now presents you with a fully fleshed out world that you can play through. There is some story, however, the way the story, at least initially, is meted out is quite light touch. It's a bit RPG and exploration based. So you'll meet certain characters, they'll give you a kind of overview of what you need to do. The name says it all, crystal hunt. So you are to go through various locations looking for crystals. Those crystals will give you the ability to power up certain magics as well. As you get further and further in, better weaponry will unlock. And as one of the characters says quite early on, you must do the thing, no spoilers, by blade or by sorcery. And there you go. That's what it's all about. So you can choose a specialization, whether you want gravity magic, lightning magic, or fire magic, and you can continue to progress those skills and utilize them in combat. Or you can just go straight in as a melee barbarian warrior or something like that. Now, having played through a little bit, I was both impressed and unimpressed at the same time. Now, as I said, Blade and Sorcery has never been my particular oeuvre. I find the combat isn't terribly deep. It really is the same sets of moves, a bit of stabby, I wish there was slightly better sword play a little bit. I'm going to segue, actually. Do you know what does sword play really well that no one ever talks about? Is Vader Immortal 1, the dojo in Vader Immortal 1. That has some actually really lovely sword play, and I'd love to see a bit more of that. I digress. So you will start in a hub world from where you can travel. It really is about exploration, walking around. You kill all the bad guys. The NPCs don't really offer you much in the way of dialogue. They're all pretty much there to be slain. You explore, you find, you go back to your hub world, you upgrade, and then you repeat. You go back out, and you basically just build up your character. There is deep lore involved, but the lore is delivered by way of, like, you find letters everywhere and you read through, and there's a rich story that's delivered to you that you have to read, and you can store it in your inventory and then progress after that. I would have liked a little bit more of a narrative guiding presence, like with NPC characters and voice acting. But again, I think the developers Warp Frog have done the right thing in terms of understanding that that's not necessarily what people are coming to Blade and Sorcery for. It really is about the combat experience and giving it just enough depth to make sure that you're upgrading your character and unlocking new environments is probably the right move for this particular mode. It's fairly impressive in terms of scalability. And by scalability, what I mean is that you can scale things. It makes sense. If you see something jutting from the wall, chances are, if you position yourself right, you can get a handhold on it and you can climb a lot. It's not quite the freeform climbing of Population 1, where it doesn't really matter if it's a smooth surface and you just kind of go like this and fling yourself up the wall. It is a little bit more, you have to concentrate, you have to see from the graphics where there is an edge and you can pull yourself up. I was pleasantly surprised by that, because initially I didn't think that it offered much verticality, but after playing around with it, I thought, oh, that's really good. And you find yourself falling into this trap of, oh, if I can get up there, then there must be something up there, because why else would they let me go up there? No, you can just get up there because you can just get up there. And so you do have a much richer exploring experience now, just because you are not guided through to key locations purely by rote of the fact that you can go there. So that's really quite pleasant as well. The combat, as I was touching on before, again, I don't find it to be terribly deep. At least in the early stages of the game, it's very easy. Like, really, you just walk up to people and go like, stab. Like, even trying to hack and slash, I didn't feel that I needed to. I just put my arm forward and ran at people, and that seemed to work fine. But the difficulty continues to escalate. So as you unlock new outposts and new places to go and search, obviously the quantities of opponents that you face, the weaponry that they have, the amount of armor that they have, escalates appropriately. So you will get a more challenging and rich experience as you proceed. Graphically, it struggles. I've never thought that Blade and Sorcery was terribly good, or I didn't think that Nomad was terribly good on the Quest, and it really, frame rates chug. And I get why. You can almost feel the weight of the physics engine pulling everything down. It does an admirable job, but you do get chuggy frame rates, particularly in the larger, more expansive areas. And it can be a little off-putting, to not quite nauseating, but I'm sure that people who have more of a susceptibility to VR sickness might struggle with this a little bit. In the tighter settings where things like you're in caves and dungeons and things like that, it actually chugs on really quite nicely, and there's no issues. It was more in the big cavernous areas. But no, otherwise, I think it is, it's a fairly mediocre looking game, but you can excuse it because the physics system underneath of it is obviously taking most of the processing power, and it's a very well implemented physics system. So, hey, why not? The other thing that's worth touching on is the mods, and it is pretty exciting that the full mod pack is kind of available on Quest in Nomad. So if you get bored of hacking and slashing, there are numerous mods that you can put on. Lightsabers, I would say almost anything you can imagine. With user-generated content, though, it does come with the caveat that some of it is utter crap. Some of it is not. Some of it is, you can see that there are talented young developers cutting their teeth using the tools and using the tools that are available here, and that's a really wonderful experience. But there's other stuff that you get in and go, okay, so someone's kid made this and it barely functions. Super cool. So previously, Blade and Sorcery Nomad got a score of 6 out of 10. From my experience now with the 1.0 version, I think this would probably bring it up to a 7.5 or an 8. I haven't finished it, so I can't necessarily guarantee that score will maintain through the course of the game. But just from seeing that you've now got something to play it that extends beyond just opening an arena, setting waves of guys, and cutting their heads off, I think it's really given the game what it needs. So it is far more worth taking a look than it used to be. That said, you don't need that from me, Blade and Sorcery. Blade and Sorcery has consistently been one of the top-selling games on the Quest platform for as long as I can remember. So I do not think anyone is going to log on to this episode of Podcast Solo Edition and be like, oh, thank fuck, Pete had something to say about it. Now I'm going to go and buy that game. I think by this stage, you either know if you're into that sort of thing. Wouldn't that be right, Doc? Yeah, mate, that sounds about right to me. Why is my voice changing? This wasn't the voice I started with. This guy's a clown. Just consider yourself lucky you didn't get the terrible voice that I tried to do for Omar. All right, so that is Blade and Sorcery, and let's go ahead and say Blade and Sorcery Nomad 8 improved. I think we can put that one there. Now, let's go back and, as promised, talk a little bit about what we've missed this year. And so for those of you who are joining the podcast now and haven't done the first episode, in the first episode, we explained the reason we're doing podcasts now is because we just don't have time in our lives to give you the full long-form review that you deserve on absolutely everything. Now, because we didn't have a shorter format that we were happy with, if we couldn't fit in a long-form review, we didn't do anything really, like the occasional impressions video. But even those, I don't think we didn't feel that they really went terribly well on the channel. They never got that great views, and we didn't feel that we were giving you a value offering for your time by doing that. So switching into the podcast format, we can now expand our coverage and talk a little bit more about a few more games. So Super McFluffy Pants said, shall we quote SMFP, or SMP for short? You guys have finite time to try, consider, do impressions, and maybe write a review on the Quest games. There is also a sea of titles out there on the store. You cannot assess all of these. Thank you for knowing. You are not the all-seeing eye of Sauron. You've just offended Doc, by the way, with that comment. How dare you? Many you will recognize as not worthy to begin with, but I have no doubt you'll give a quick dip to some just out of curiosity. You are correct. Whenever we get a game, at least one member of the team will jump in and try it. We have access to quite a few games and a lot of the library, and sometimes we do get early access as well. So you're quite correct. If we get access to it, someone will at least try it. I get the feeling that if a title is out on the store for maybe 6 months plus and you are not even acknowledging its existence, that's probably a bit of a red flag for potential consumers. So that is the point that I wanted to address today, and that is not always the case. It really has come down to an issue of time versus quality, and us feeling like we didn't want to waste your time by putting in low-effort videos, but within our lives, we didn't necessarily have the time to make high-quality videos. But here you are, watching me, in the void, talk by myself about games, so apparently quality is no longer an issue. So what I wanted to do is cycle back, and there were 3 games that came out in the last 6 months that we didn't cover on the channel that I really think that you should consider checking out because they were very good. So mini reviews, if you will, are coming now. Zero Calibur 2. Zero Calibur 2 came out, I think it was about 2 months ago, and I think a few of us tried it. I think it's really, really good. I know I played multiplayer with Omar. Now, I can't bring up Zero Calibur 2 without talking about Gambit. Unfortunately, I'm an asshole and I can't let things go. Gambit, by the same studio, X-Real Games, was a travesty, and it was full of lies. It was actually some of the worst, shadiest marketing that I've seen in VR at all. And it's really hurt my feelings, and I can't not mention it every time I bring it up. So that's one thing. Put that over there. Second thing is Zero Calibur 2. Now, Doc reviewed Zero Calibur, and if you've not seen that, I would say check it out. It's actually one of my favorite reviews at all on our channel. I think it was a really masterfully well-written review. It got 7.5 from memory, and again, it did a lot of things right, but it had just too much jank and too much not quite hitting the mark to get any higher than that. Now, the studio continued to iterate and improve the game, and it did continue to improve. And you can see a lot of that has then paid off in Zero Calibur 2. So here we are now, Zero Calibur 2. It is a story campaign that can be played either single player or multiplayer. I say story, air quotes. Even the developers have come out and basically acknowledge the fact that this is not an Oscar-winning screenplay here at all. It is just enough narrative to give you a premise to go forward and clear the enemies out of various locations. And to be honest with you, I'm fine with that. I do not need narrative in games. I like it if it's done well. If it's not done well, I find it's better left alone. Zero Calibur 2 treads that, I think, beautifully. They really do a great job of putting gameplay first, and then the trappings that give you a reason to invest in the gameplay second. And I think that's really well done. The gunplay is excellent. The way that the scenarios that it gives you is really, really fun. It's really rewarding. Quite early on, you experience what it would be like to go house to house through suburban environments. It's very Call of Duty. It's sort of the VR equivalent of that. And it's done really, really well. You find yourself fighting your way down streets, hiding behind burnt out cars, breaching into houses, throwing grenades around the corner, coming around with your shotgun, bing, bang, bomb. It's exciting. It is, it's a great action game. It is very, very solid. There are a few little janky bits that I didn't like so much. I found that the end of the gun would jag on things. But to me, that's actually better than clipping through. It shows that there was more presence and priority given to the physical environment. But it's no good when you try and wheel around a corner to unleash hell on somebody, only to find that your shotgun is still over there because it got caught on the door frame or something like that. There were a couple of points where the frame rate slowed down a little bit, but overall, I think it was a really high quality game. Great, like you can laser tag a tank and then call in an airstrike. All the while, you're defending yourself with your pistol against encroaching infantry soldiers. This is not the best game that you've ever played, but it is well worth your time. It has a PvP mode as well, which I thought was really well delivered. You can fight against bots, you can fight against people. I'm not the biggest fan of milsim style PvP shooters. This is probably one of my favorites. If you have a B haptics vest, like I do, it has B haptics integration at launch, and it's very well implemented. Put that into the mix with co-op or PvP mode, and you feel yourself really immersed. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10 based on playing it all the way through to completion. Great job. We missed that one, but it's well worth you checking out. The next game I want to talk to you a little bit about is Brazen Blaze. Now, Brazen Blaze, Omar and I actually recorded some footage for this, and we were going to do a video on this, and then time just ate our souls. Brazen Blaze is a 3v3 multiplayer shooter bash 'em up kind of game. I've heard it referred to as a sort of game that takes some elements of Super Smash Brothers and puts into a VR first-person shooter. Now, Brazen Blaze, I think, is not necessarily going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I personally thought it had a lot of great qualities. It was just shy of the mark of being finished, in my opinion. And what I mean by that isn't so much about the how well put together it was. It wasn't terribly janky. It did everything it was supposed to do proficiently. It just didn't have enough content. It didn't have enough characters. It didn't have enough environments or levels for you to play through. So the general premise is, the story is fucking ridiculous. It's election season, and we must decide the president of the world by seeing who can punch everybody else the hardest. That's essentially it. It's dumb, okay? It's really dumb. But, whatever. It is what it is. Like I said, who needs the trappings of narrative when you can just play really solid gameplay? So, from there, you pick your character. It's a hero shooter style thing. So there are, at launch, I think it had 6 characters. They've released another 2 from memory. Each character has their own particular strengths and weaknesses. So there are some characters that play like shooters, that you can stay back and you can actually snipe everybody else. There are some that really melee focus, but the melee is giant gauntlets. You punch people and you kind of send them flying. It's like this really exaggerated melee gameplay, Smash Brothers style. Like, send them flying off into the air. If they can jump their way back in before they land outside of the arena and plummet to their doom, so be it. It's really fast movement based. Everyone has dashes. You control the dashes by pointing your hands and pressing the button, and then you'll fly off into that direction or that direction. And it's a really engaging movement system. And I love really engaging movement systems. So that's one of the things that really got me into it. It does take a little while to get the hang of, particularly if you're playing a melee character. Now, deliberately, the guns are weaker than melee because they don't want it just to turn into a shooter. So if you are going to hang back and snipe and shoot people, you are going to have to be really good because the guns are weaker than melee. Once you get the hang of using the lock-on feature, which I think is something from maybe Overwatch. I think maybe somebody said that it was like a mashup between Overwatch and Smash Brothers. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, once you get the hang on the fact that before you punch, you want to use the automatic lock-on. So you don't, it's not cheap. You don't just constantly track somebody. But once you've got a target in your sight, you just click the button and then throw your punch. And it just means that you're going to stay. Because the movement system is so fast, without that, it would be almost impossible to make contact. And I played it in early access before it actually launched, and I didn't get that, and I hated it. I was like, well, it's impossible. Like, it's cool mechanics, but it's impossible to actually play and win. Once I worked that out, I realized, actually, this has got some depth to it. Graphically, it's quite cool. It's got a nice, striking visual style. Not quite anime, but getting fairly close to that. There's a few liberties taken that I didn't quite like. Like, for example, so you've got these giant gauntlets. They put no effort into giving you a wrist. They are basically your forearm and hand, your fist, are effectively joint, and they can only do that. So when you do this with your controllers, your forearm just flicks out like that. And that sucks. It really, I don't like it. I boo that decision. Give me a wrist. But it's not game breaking. You get the hang of it and you just stop looking at it for a while. But at first I was kind of doing this, just going like, this is dumb. But anyway, like I said, that is being pedantic. The sound, the audio is okay. Like there's a few taglines for each character and they play over and over again. And the voice acting isn't great, but it's not bad. And again, we're not talking about a narrative driven experience. So who really cares? I just wish there was a little bit more oomph behind the sound design. One of the things that I've not mentioned is the fact that a big selling feature is destructible environments. I'll get onto that because I do want to talk about that. But the sounds, like, you punch through a building because you're like, that's one of the things of the game. You can see somebody's over there. Don't jump over the building. Punch your way through the building. It explodes. Like, that's really empowering. The sound design doesn't give you that sense of oomph. So that's something that I think really could have been a little bit better. The other thing that crushed it for me, the reason that I stopped playing, were the loading times. In order to get, like, it's one of those games that if it could keep you in the game, if you could just keep going rematch, and not having to pause, I would still be playing it. I really thought it was great. But after you play your whichever game mode you're playing, whether it's best of 3 series or it's you can play team versus team and you've got 5 lives per team, so whoever kills the other team 5 times wins. There's those different game modes. If you could just go retry and start it again, I would not have stopped playing it. That was the thing that killed me. But as it is, I think I timed it, and it's something like 4 minutes to get from round over into the next round. And that's assuming nobody leaves and you don't have to go back into the lobby to queue again. It was such a fundamental flaw. And if that was fixed and we could just press retry with the same people and go back into the same game again, I'll pick it up because it's really cool. The other thing about the level design is the last thing that I'm going to say on Brazen Blaze is it's just not enough. And the reason I say that is each level at the start is quite cool. So it's basically a square and there's different buildings and pathways and things hidden around the place. But because you can destroy the environment, it doesn't matter. If there were elements of the environment that couldn't be destroyed that always stayed there, so you could have some tactical play, it would make more sense. But all of the levels kind of filter you into one open area in the middle. And regardless of what's going on, you can just punch your way through the buildings, level the entire thing, and then just take out everybody else. It came so close. Like, I've always wanted a game that gave you the ability to destroy the environment around you. But unfortunately, it didn't do it in a clever tactical way. It did it in a way that actually takes away from the gameplay rather than adding to it, I felt. So if that could be improved slightly, and I think all it would take would be for certain elements of the environment to no longer be destructible, I think that would add a huge amount to the game. So for a mini review of Brazen Blaze, I'm now going to say 6.5. So full of potential! Good luck with that one, Omar. And the last one I'm going to do for you, and then I'm going to read some comments from the last episode, and then I'm going to leave you be. Is that okay with you, Omar? I can't do the voice. Yeah, partner. That sounds absolutely fine. Why are you a cowboy? You're not a cowboy. That's because you suck at this. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. The last one I wanted to talk to you guys about was, I have my little list here. I'm going to go with one that I didn't like that much, actually. No, that defeats the whole purpose. That defeats the whole purpose, doesn't it? VR Skater SL. That's what we're going to talk about. VR Skater SL. Now, VR Skater is a really solid game that falls short of excellence because of the SL. Now, it's the standalone version. There is a PSVR 2 version and I believe a PCVR version, which gives you full levels, Tony Hawk Pro Skater dream levels, where you can do these runs where you just keep going, pulling tricks, grinding, jumping, doing all these things. With VR Skater in the standalone version, what they've done is they've given you 5, I think, warehouses that you can do, trick parks, basically. The controls for this game are outstanding. They are outstandingly hard, but when you get them, when you commit them to muscle memory, it is so cool. Like, it really is. So, from a controls perspective, just to give you an idea, let's say you want to do a flip. You start by pushing yourself like this to emulate the leg going like that. And that feels great. Like, honestly, you get into a groove and you're like, okay, I'm building up speed. This is really cool. And then maybe you hold the 2 grip buttons, and as you jump through lifting your arms and with a button release, you then flip like that. And that will flip the board round and round and round for you. So depending on the direction that you do, so if you, for example, jump and swing out that way, you're going to flip your board around there. If you do with 2 hands and you flip in opposite direction, you're going to get more of a twisty flip. You can tell I'm not a skater. It feels right. I cannot think of a way that skateboarding or skateboard tricks in VR could be better than this. Like, those controls are bang on. And there are so many of them too. There are so many different ways that you can engage with the different tricks and grinds, heel flips. I'm an old guy. I don't actually know anything about skating in terms of terminology. What I can tell you is, for a fat old geezer like me that has never been able to skateboard, I felt cool in this game. I really did. The next thing I will say about this game, though, is it's hard. And I know I've already said this once, but I need you to understand. Guys, everybody, this game's hard. It is hard. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not a game. You're not going to pick it up, play it for 20 minutes, nail it. You are going to have to put the time in. Muscle memory is really where it all comes down to. So there's a lot of combinations that you can do, going into manuals and then going back up onto heel grinds, like, the back of the board. I don't know the names of these things. If you want to not get stuck just doing the same tricks over and over again, you're going to have to invest time into this. Now, I can see that time would feel really great, particularly if we got the full version. If we got the full levels like Tony Hawk Pro Skater that would let you go on these runs that are just straight and you can go trick from trick from trick, I think I could definitely see myself putting in the time to become quite good at this. The reason that the skate parks don't work is because, as far as I'm concerned, the turning is abysmal. So the ability of getting up to the end and then turning around and coming back even lining up your run so that you hit your jump and land on the rail the way that you want to is so difficult. Like the turning, if there was any mechanic in this game that I could change, it would be the way that it turns. So because the skate park requires you to do short distances up and back, and turning has now become a key feature of playing the game, and it's also the weakest mechanic of the game, it becomes the hugest letdown. So you could have the current control system with the long courses that the PCVR and PSVR have, and this game would be sublime, superb. Or you could have better turning mechanics and have the skate parks, and again, the game would be fantastic. But where it is with that combination of shitty turning and the fact that you have to do that a lot, it is the big thing that knocks this down off the scoreboard. It would also be nice if it was just a little bit more accessible. Like, I don't know, did I mention this game's hard? It was a hard game. Hard game. But for some people, that's what they want. Like, there is, if this clicks with you, if this is a game that you really enjoy, there is hours worth of fun to be had here. So I'm going to leave it at that point. I have done an impressions video of the Pico release of this. So if you want to go back and look at the gameplay, it looks almost identical on the Quest. So you're basically getting a like for like. What you'll see in that video, that was the most frustrating video, because even after playing it for 2 to 3 hours at that point, I was still so bad that you would just be watching me fall, get back up, fall, get back up, fall, get back up. That's pretty indicative of how it's going to be for everybody, I think, because I'm perfect and nobody's better than me. That's pretty indicative of how it's going to be for most people in the beginning. And then when you start to get your groove, you'll be stringing together combos. And if you were like me and you grew up playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater, this will be like, it'll blow your mind if you get good at it. So I'm giving this one another 6.5. And I'm saying almost. Now, viewer, what you might realize is I've just done a quick roundup of previous games that we've missed, and I've given an 8 and then some lower scores. Those scores do not imply that you shouldn't play those games. Those scores don't imply that the game wasn't good, and the fact that we didn't cover it doesn't do that either. These are games that have value, they have merit, and with a little bit more love and direction, they both could become truly excellent titles. So what I thought we might do is, when the gang's back together, maybe in one of Doc's corners, we could talk about the games that he's been playing. I know Thrasher is something that he might want to talk to you about. And same for Omar. We might speak to Omar and say, well, why don't you tell us about a couple of the key titles that you feel that we missed as a channel over 2024? So, as a parting gift, if you are still here, like, honest to God, well done. Like, just, you've listened to me or watched my floating egg in space for 40 odd minutes now. Tremendous effort, guys. Give yourself a pat on the back. I know you're just here for, by the way, this is not Doc. I know I've been very convincing. This guy, his name is Obama. He's the Obama Llama. Okay. And he likes you. He's grateful to you for coming here. I'm going to read just a few of the comments from last week's episode before we go. John Bartow quickly becoming one of my favorite shows. Thanks, mate. That really makes a difference. If that changes after today's solo episode, I do apologize. We'll all be back next week. It's all going to be fine. Who else? BL Clark. BL Clark has been jumping in, telling us the good things. He likes the new podcast. Thank you, BL Clark. Black Market Honey, you're always going to get the shout out. Stuart Burns, you're always going to get the shout out. Papa Squat, what did you mean? Damn, Duck! Have you not seen him before? Were you surprised by how beautiful he was? Were you surprised by his opinions? Tell us more, Papa Squat. Xander Deja. Thanks for the... I haven't gone in to try a bar fight, but I will. I saw that and I was like, okay, he gets me. Or she. I can't see a profile picture. Thank you very much. Tell me about any other levels that you like. By the way, if you're confused, we're talking about Vendetta Forever, which we talked about last week and loved. We unilaterally loved that game. If you have a favorite level from that one, come back. Tell me all about it. Lord Val from Hell, thank you for jumping in. There is a lot of good stuff there. And you're right, this seems to be the right channel for fathers. We are all dads. We are all men of a certain age. And we are all people who are trying to fit our gaming into a finite resource, which is time. That said, if you are not a father, you're still welcome here. You can be young. You can be young at heart. You could be a lady gamer. You're welcome to join us. We respect you and want you to be here, whoever you are. Sorry, I'm just reading through because Lord Val from Hell left us a really good long comment, and I love stuff like this that we can really engage on. Lord Val, I might pick that up in the comment section and make sure you get a thorough reply to that. Who else? I mean, Super McFluffy Pants, you got a whole section, so you're covered. We don't need to talk to you anymore. And Extra Monkney. Vendetta Forever is a great game. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, Pete Austin says whelmed. And of course, dude, Corvorn. How am I not going to mention Corvorn? Shouting out Doc, loves the extra layer. So tell me, you liked it with Omar and I. You liked it even more with Omar and I and Doc. What did you think about just me by myself and my hand puppets? Be kind. Please be kind. So yeah, and I'd love to hear eventually about any small games that you've that have slipped under the radar. Oh, hey, look, I've given all of the credit to Super McFluffy Pants. Corvorn, this was for you as well. This was for you. One thing that we might also do, if you're interested, you can jump back in and we can tell you which of the games that have come out previously that we're still playing now that have actually not just impressed us at the time that we got access, but still to this day make us pick up the headset and put it on. I'll throw you one for free as I leave the cabin. Love that one. So anyway, sweet viewer, thank you so much for staying with me, keeping me company in the inky void of space. I do need to go now. I have, God, I have a lot of work to do. I have to work. Do you know that everyone, it's my birthday today?
Pete Austin's day has come again. Raise your glasses, shout my friend. Great reviewer through the lens. Virtual worlds where fun never ends. Father figure always there with love and time. He's right and fair. Gaming buddy can't compare. His laughter echoes everywhere. Happy birthday, Pete, we sing. Cheers to all the joy you bring. Friend and father, just like spring. In your praise our hearts do ring.
And I have to work late. But we'll be fine. So, if you have enjoyed this, click like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this, I promise you we'll never do this again. I won't leave you alone with me again. And in the meantime, happy gaming!